Hey guys, it's Jeff with Wiseman Automotive. We are working on a 2005 Toyota Camry, and this thing is going to need some work. It is the 2AZ FE engine for you Toyota gearheads. To everybody else, you would call it a 2.4 liter four-cylinder. And the things we're doing this today is we're going to be replacing the water pump. I'm going to show you in just a minute why. I'm going to go ahead and replace the valve cover gasket. We're going to do spark plugs on this thing, an air filter, cabin filter, and we'll see what else we can find. So we're going to start this thing up, and you guys are going to hear why, hopefully, why this thing's in here. So hopefully you can hear that. And if you look, you can see that water pump pulley right there. See how it's kind of walking? All right. We'll cut this off real quick. Now, let's see if I can zoom in so you can see. Try to get a good shot for you here, but it's also, you can see the water pump's leaking, which is very common on these cars, especially if you don't drain out that coolant, do a coolant service. Look right there. If I can get you a better shot there. Right there. See that nasty stuff right there, the tip of my flashlight right there? That nasty stuff right there? That's the coolant. And you look right here, here's the overflow jug. And you can see this crusty stuff that it makes, right? See that nasty stuff right there? Yeah. If you don't change out your coolant enough, that's what happens. And it'll start attacking your gaskets too. Matter of fact, you look at the top of this radiator right here, you can see that it's kind of, that's this little, I don't know, film on it. And that's from not changing your antifreeze soon enough. I'd say you probably need to do it at about, I think they recommend like 90,000 or something, but I mean, probably 60,000 would probably be better. Another way we can tell that the water pump has gone bad is if you take a pry bar here, let's see if I can get you at the right angle so that way you can see. So just to start off, this right here is your alternator, okay? This guy right here, that's your alternator. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to take this pry bar behind the water pump pulley. I'm just kind of put it on there. Not real hard. Let's see if I can get you in there and see if you can take a look what I'm doing here. Okay? I don't know if you can tell at home, but that pulley there, you want those bolts on there, that thing's got a lot of play in it. So that bearing is shot. So we are going to replace that water pump. The water pump that we are using is this one right here. I got it from Federated Auto Parts. Let's see here. Here's a part number for you. That's the part number we are using. Looks something like that. Comes with a gasket on the back here. Okay. Now, let's look at some of the tools I know we're going to need, and we'll probably need a few more. Because I'm working on Toyota, I know that I'm going to need all my metric wrenches and sockets and stuff like that. So we're going to need a 21 millimeter socket to take the tire off, something to take it off with, obviously. I know we're going to need, along the way, a 3/8 ratchet, a quarter drive ratchet. I went ahead and grabbed my quarter drive deep 10 and my shallow 10. I'm going to need a 12 millimeter socket, a 14 millimeter socket, maybe a 17, we'll see. I'm going to need something to hold that water pump still with. So once I get that belt off of there, I got to be able to keep that water pump still to keep the pulley from turning. So I'm going to use a strap wrench here. Hopefully this one will hold it. If this won't hold it, this guy right here will. If you ever seen one of these. Vice Grip brand, chain vise, nice tool to have. Sometimes be a little complicated to hold and stuff, but this is an awesome tool. I'll use this one first. I'll probably end up using some air ratchets here. I got a 3/8 and a quarter drive ready to go. You know, when you're working on a Toyota or a Lexus, you know that if you have an 8 millimeter, a 10 millimeter, a 12, a 14, a 17, a 19, and a 21, and maybe a 22, If you have those wrenches and sockets, you can take 90% of this vehicle apart. So just something to keep in mind. Now, that is not necessarily true if there is something aftermarket on here. In other words, if somebody put some struts on here and they reuse the bolts that hold the strut to the strut tower, or they get new nuts with that, those usually be like 13 or something like that. So just so you know, if it's aftermarket, that kind of rule doesn't apply here, okay? Alrighty, so I know that this engine's cold. It has not been running. It's been sitting in the shop. So I know it's okay to take this off. Do not ever remove your radiator cap with a warm engine. And remember, I am doing these videos trying to help people out, trying to give you the information out there. But if you do not feel comfortable doing any of this work, then by all means, hire somebody to do it. Now, I'm going to pop this loose. Before I do want to show you something. I did draw the belt diagram. So this is how the serpentine belt has to go on. That's the alternator. It comes around and then wraps around the water pump, goes around the AC compressor, goes to the crankshaft, up to the tensioner, and then down to the power steering. That's how so kind of like an hourglass shape. That's how that belt goes. I went ahead and just drew it so I wouldn't forget, because you don't want to take that belt off of there and not remember how to put it back on. And I have actually been able to put belts back on, and they were the wrong way. All right, so I'm probably going to order a new radiator cap as well. You can see the corrosion is starting to attack the seal right there. See all that right there? That's probably why that was the neck of the radiator was kind of white, so to speak. So I'm going to probably order me one of those. I just noticed that it needs some wipers too, and I thought I'd order a serpentine belt, but I don't see one, so I want to get one of those as well. All right, I popped that dude loose right there. So now we're going to take this thing up in the air, and we're going to start draining the coolant out of it. Another thing I want to point out is this thing has been sitting in my shop for a couple of days, and look, that right there was not from me. So this water pump has been leaking for a while. All right, so look underneath here. There's supposed to be a splash shield here. That's been long gone, but you got this valve right here. If you look right there, that's what you need to turn. Now you may need to get a pair of pliers. Sometimes they're very tight, so like some slip joint pliers. I got that on my hands. All right, it's made to go through this little hole right here in the plastic. I'm gonna let that guy drain. It's gonna take a little while, but while he's draining, I am gonna remove the passenger side front tire and see about what it's going to take to get this serpentine belt off. So now I'm going to grab me a screwdriver here, just a flathead screwdriver. Gotta be careful. This thing's already broken up and everything. I don't see this hubcap lasting much longer. It'll probably end up coming off on him when he hits a bump somewhere. 21 millimeter socket, and to put him on. Okay, you got a little shield here, 10 millimeter socket that is. Okay, this thing usually kind of drops out of the way. Kind of get that out of the way there. Put my bolts to the side. Seeing what else is holding it on. It's got this little plastic rivet here on the back side. I may have to get a pair of needle nose pliers that are angled like something like these right here. Okay, and I go on the back side here. It's easy for me to do on this one because it's already missing the splash shield. Pop that dude out of there. But so it had this little piece right here that I had to get off of there. All right, so I took that splash shield with the two bolts, put it there, put the tire in the trash can right there, so that way it's out of the way. So now let's let this guy down and get that belt off from the top. All right, so I want you to note that I do have a fender cover on here protecting the fender. Right there, if you see that guy right there, I got my 19 millimeter half drive socket, and then I got my big old half drive ratchet. Now, you don't need one necessarily this size. You could go with a smaller one and get a cheater bar or something. And make sure I'm going the right way, which I'm not. I got to go like I'm tightening it, so I'm going to need to push down. I believe. Yeah. I'm going to push it down like this. Okay. Put that dude on off of there. Now, sometimes when I'm replacing like the alternator or something, I wouldn't recommend taking the belt all the way off. But I plan on replacing this belt, and since I'm replacing the water pump, I don't want coolant to get on the belt and saturate it and mess it up. Like I said, I'm replacing it anyways. But if you weren't replacing, then I would recommend getting the belt out of the way. While it's in here now, now's the time to start spinning. See if you hear anything else going bad. Oh yeah, look at this water pump right here. When I push it, like watch. See that? Yeah, you know that's bad. But I'm checking my tensioner. I'm trying to spin my alternator and tensioner. The heater running in the background, it is hard to tell. So what I might do is I might try to put some mechanics stethoscope on it. Or if you don't have a mechanic stethoscope, you can use a long screwdriver. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the alternator. You may be able to finagle it where you don't have to, but I'm going to go ahead and remove it. So I took the negative battery cable off. I used a 10 millimeter to do that. Now, this alternator is held on. You have a 10 millimeter here, right here for that bracket. You can either undo the wiring harness right here, just clip it and pull that off, or take the bracket off. It's whatever you prefer. You have a 10 millimeter here, which I've already loosened up for the alternator housing. You have a connector right here, and you pull that boot back. You need to push down right here and wiggle that dude off of there. I'm also going to take my pocket screwdriver. See if I can get in so you can see that clip right here. You see this clip right here, okay? Do with a pocket screwdriver, just try to put that dude in there and just not trying to break it, but you know, you got to remember this car is like 20 years old now. And if it breaks, it's not a big deal. I'm just trying to get that dude to loosen up. There we go. All right. So now the challenging part, you have a 14 here, okay, 14 millimeter socket here, and then underneath here it's kind of hard to show you, but down here there's one on the bottom. I can put my finger on it. I don't know if you can quite see it or not, but that is a 12 millimeter down there. So let's go ahead and buzz those off of there. All right, first thing I want to do is take these 10s off of here. Okay, 10, 10, and then this bracket should come off, and just this wiring harness you'll be able to flop to the side a little bit. It'd be probably a smart idea just to take your 10 millimeter nut, put back there on the alternator. Remember to unhook your battery. If you do not do this, and this right here is battery positive, so that touches ground somewhere, you're going to have sparktricity, and you may blow a fuse or damage something else. So, okay, here we go. Hopefully it won't blast your ears too much. I'm going to use a deep well 14 on a swivel here. Okay, got that one. All right, now I'm probably going to use a shallow 12 here. Probably going to use my swivel socket. I've already broke it loose by hand, so it's really hard to see this one. Okay. All right, there's that one right there. It's got a 12 millimeter head. This has got a 14 millimeter head. I'm going to take these bolts, stick up here on the cowl panel. Now, I'm going to grab a pry bar. I think it's going to come off there pretty easily. It seems like it wants to fall off of there. I'm just going to kind of put it behind the alternator housing and just give it a little snuggarooski, little tug on that thing. All right, there we go. To pop it off of there. You don't want it coming off too fast. All right. So, if you need to replace your alternator, well, now it's time to do it. This video shows you how to do that. Put the alternator aside. Hopefully, put it for a spot where it won't fall. now that I've done that, you can see how much room I've opened up. Doesn't look like it maybe, but man, you can really get to that water pump now. So now let's worry about getting that water pump off of there. Alrighty, I kind of jumped ahead real quick. I need to know what I need to do here. So I grabbed my 12 millimeter, and I actually grabbed a ratchet wrench. You don't have to have a ratchet wrench, but you know, ratchet wrenches are awesome, they help. I put my strap wrench around the water pump, and I went through each one of these four and broke them free. Now look, the way I did it was I held this right here and let it ride against the engine block there. Instead of trying to hold my left hand and turn my right or vice versa, let that thing ride on there, because when that first bolt broke free, I hit my hand against the engine and didn't feel too good. So I put my strap wrench on, just like that, held it, it worked like a charm. So now I'm going to take and get these right here out of here. If you're using air tools, just be mindful that you have AC lines and stuff like that, and when the back of that air tool is like the air ratchet is ratcheting, well, it can dig into those AC lines. I almost did it earlier and I caught myself. So anyways, all right, I'm going to get these four off of here and then sneak that dude out of there. I got all four bolts out. I want to just, you kind of have to get the right angle of the dangle here. And you can see on the inside of here, look at that. This water pump's been leaking for a while. See all those crusties right there? This thing's been leaking for a while. Look at that. Man, that's crazy. That's a good one there. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to reach my arm down here, and I want to cut off the drain to the radiator because it is good and drained. It's been draining for a while. Matter of fact, on one of the brakes, actually, I ordered a tensioner, and I ordered some wipers and a serpentine belt. All right, and in that time, the radiator was draining. Okay, so if you look right there, see if we can get you a better spot in a minute. But you got some 10 millimeter bolt heads here that hold that water pump on. It looks like it's sitting in there something like that. So it looks like you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bolts probably holding it in there. All right, so I'm going to get probably my quarter drive ratchet with a long quarter drive 10 millimeter here. And this thing's pretty loud. But I want to see if I can bust these loose real quick. Something I should mention real quick before I bust these bolts loose is that I took the tray that was down there that was catching the antifreeze and I put it right underneath the water pump. We got the radiator drained out, but now we got to get the water pump drained out. So I'm not going to start my easiest bolt, which will probably be like this one or this one. I'm actually going to start trying to get one of the harder bolts out, so one's on the bottom. Let's see here. Being careful because I got a long socket here, and I don't want to get it pinched between the body of the vehicle and the car and get my ratchet stuck. Or I mean body of the vehicle and the bolt head, I should say. All right, got that dude out of there. I'm gonna send him up here. Okay, and you want to watch. This one should be fine, but some water pump bolts and stuff like that may be longer than others, and so you want to make sure you put them back in the right spot. If you ever do like a old Ford 460 water pump, you want to make sure you get the right bolts in the right spot. Ask me how I know. All right, so sorry about the wiggling camera there. I got those 2 bolts and the 1 nut off there, and now this little wiring harness here, I just flop to the side if we need it to get out of our way. All right, I got another nut on the other side, but I want to see about getting the ones on the bottom now. So I'm probably going to switch to my quarter drive ratchet. It's better if you could get a flex head to do this probably. Another thing I like about this ratchet right here is that it's got a long handle, so you can get a decent amount of torque on it. And I'm just sneaking underneath here, and I'm gonna try to get it in my hands, and I can feel it in my fingers right now, and it's tight. I mean, it's a tight space. They didn't make it easy for you. You may be able to get it from the bottom. Might be my other option I might end up entertaining. But right now, I still got this one and this one held on to hold the water pump on. All right, so let me try to work with this thing, getting it off. All right, this is looking from the bottom here. I went ahead and put the car up. It's that bolt right there. So obviously, that bolt is going to be a lot easier to get out from the bottom. I've already got it loose. I got my little extension here, and I'm going to take that guy loose real quick. One thing I did while I was down here, so when I took that bolt off, I just set it down here on the lift. And then another thing is I took a pair of needle nose pliers and went in right here, and I got that wiring harness disconnected from there. So I was mistaken. It only has 6 bolts holding it in, not 7. But look at this thing. You can see how nasty that is. See that? All that coolant residue there. It's awful. So it's a good thing we're replacing this. The only thing I did just now off camera was I took the one last remaining nut and one last remaining bolt and put them up here. Only reason I didn't show you that because I didn't feel like blasting your eardrums with my air ratchet there. It's really loud. All right, so now just kind of take this pry bar and just kind of. So one thing I want to point out is if I had taken that bolt at the bottom, if I would have taken that out first, I'm sorry, if I was taking that out last, then I could potentially have coolant spilled all over my face. So that's like one of the first ones you want to take out. Let's get this guy out of here. Take a look at what's going on. Got to make sure I get that gasket cleaned off of there. And oh yeah, I can feel it's wobbly. You can see that shaft moving right there. That thing's going up and down. There's a bearing inside of here, and it is just shot. I can rotate it in my hand and just feel how rough it is. So yeah. All right, so now I'm gonna see about getting that surface right there cleaned up. I went ahead and cleaned that surface up. I used a razor blade and a whizzer wheel when I could. Just be careful using a razor blade on aluminum. Obviously, watch your hands. Make sure that doesn't get on your hands. You don't want to cut yourself, obviously. Right here is a tensioner, and if you look at that pulley, you see you've got little bits of belt on, like, kind of embedded in the pulley there. I'm going to go ahead and replace this. So I think we're going to have to tackle it from the bottom. Okay, we're trying to take this 14 millimeter nut off, and that 14 millimeter bolt right up there by the power steering pump. Hopefully it can come out fairly easy. This is the tensioner and pulley assembly. There's a part number for you, made by Daco. I'm not replacing just the pulley. I'm replacing the whole assembly, the tensioner and everything. This is for the serpentine belt is what I'm trying to do. All right, let's see if we can knock this nut off of my 14 deep on an impact drive. Okay, obviously that's not the one I'm really worried about. I looked up on all data on how to do it, and it says about an 1.5-hour job, and it says that you just remove it. It doesn't say if you gotta drop the engine mount or if you gotta use a special tool. It doesn't tell you hardly anything. So it does tell me the torque specs, and I think they're like 44 foot-pounds for each one. I can't get a ratchet in there, so I'm gonna try to get a wrench up there on there. Oh man. Yeah, that's pretty tight. All right, I'm gonna switch over to now that I broke it loose, I'm gonna switch over to my ratchet wrench here. Typically speaking, when you have a tight bolt, it is not good to break a tight nut or bolt with a ratchet wrench. You should break it loose with your normal wrench, and then go from there with the ratchet wrench. Another word of caution: if you have a tight nut or bolt and you have a fine tooth ratchet, That's not good either to break loose really tight bolts with those fine tooth ratchets and sockets. My experience, it ends up breaking the little teeth in there. So if you're gonna break a tight nut bolter loose, it'd be better to use a breaker bar. But if you don't have one available or you can't get one in there, make sure you use a ratchet that is just a normal ratchet and not a fine tooth. So that's your tech tip for the day. I got a sneaking suspicion, and we'll see, that I'm either going to have to take this stud out here, which is a Torx bit. It's an inverted Torx bit. I may have to take that loose in order to get this thing to drop out of here. I'm not sure. What I'm kind of hoping right now is, I'm hoping I want to take some motor mounts loose and then have to jack the oil pan up just to get this tensioner out. I mean, if I have to, I have to. It's just, I'm hoping I don't have to. Hopefully they were smart enough and left this bolt, hopefully it doesn't thread on the other side of the fender there. Sorry I'm in the way, but man, it's really hard getting to this guy. I'm using both of my hands and just turning at this point. I'm hoping it's going to fall out of there before I run out of room, because right now I'm getting pretty close to the fender well here. If they just make it about a ½ inch shorter, you'd probably be all right. All right, let me work on getting this out and come back to you. I end up taking the harmonic balancer off, which is a 19 millimeter. Pulled off my air gun, and then the bouncer came off. Thought I had enough room. Still don't have enough room. So now I want to show you what we're up against here. We're trying to get this bolt to top to come out, but you can see it's hitting against the fender well there. I mean, if they just would have made this thing a ½ inch shorter, it would have been perfect. I have a piece of wood and a jack under the oil pan. Let's see if I can just remove, I'm using a 14 millimeter. I don't know if I can remove that side motor mount. Now I want to take and jack. I don't need much, just need a little bit, but I don't want to put too much pressure, okay? Sorry about that, I kicked the stand. All right. Now I want to see if I can guide this guy up here. There we go. Come on. It's been a while. I've done these before. It's been a while for me. I'm right there at it. Getting that bolt to slide up. Like, we're talking like ½ inch more, I think, which I think I just got. Man, why didn't they just make this thing a ½ inch shorter? Here we go. Here we go. All right. There it is. If you look at this thing, you see the pieces, little pieces of the belt being embedded in there, but when I spin it and hold it to my ear, I can hear just a little, it's not much, but just a little bit of rattle. Since I already had the water pump off, it does actually make this job easier. You know, it's been a pain in the butt. I'd rather do it now than, you know, a year from now. So I'm going to put the bolt back in. Make sure you do that. Put that bolt back in there. I'm going to try to put this dude back in there just like I took it out. Hopefully, they were pretty tight with their tolerances when they made this. Yeah, there we go. Something like that. All right, so now what I'm doing is, there, I got on the stud on the bottom. So as I was holding my right hand, my left hand was going between the fender well there, and I was putting on the stud on the bottom, so that way it would kind of sit there for me. And now I'm going to try to go in here and start this guy by hand. I may have to go from the bottom and do it, though I can't get both my hands in there, unfortunately. So I'm going to let this guy down a little bit, real easy like. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead. I should be safe to go ahead and just put this motor mount back on real quick. And I want to make sure I get up and get the bolts started from the bottom side. All right, I went ahead and put this nut on here on the bottom. That's the easy one to get to. So now I got to reach up here like this with both my hands. I can't see what I'm doing, but I'm just using my hands to turn the bolt in. I can feel that I already got it started. And I'm just going to keep doing this because I got a long ways to go. Like I said, if they would have made that bolt a half-inch shorter, life would have been pretty gravy. All right. First, go in there as tight as I can in my hands. And these are, you can torque these down to 44 foot-pounds. So if you can get a torque wrench in there, good job. I had to use one of these guys right here. I was trying to use that. You put a wrench in here, and then you grab it by the, you put the half-drive torque wrench right here and use that to pry against the wrench. It's not a whole lot of room in there, so if you can get it, good. If not, you're going to just snug it good and tight. All right, we're going to put, so I put that harmonic balancer back on there, and now I need to find a torque spec for it, and I'll show you another little trick with that. Okay, on this harmonic balancer bolt, I'm going to take just some Loctite here, a little bit, put on those threads before I put it in there. Whenever you have a bolt going into something that's turning, you're going to want to do that. Put a little Loctite on there. That was something that I really didn't know about until the last couple of years. No one, I don't remember telling me that. So that is a 19 millimeter. Let me find my socket. And once I find it, I'll come back to you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and hammer that guy in here with this. And that's actually 125 foot-pounds. I tried to find a good way to hold this pulley. I kept trying, and I couldn't find a good way. My chain vice grips wouldn't fit around this right here or the timing mark on the timing cover there. So I just hammered it down, and it'll be good with my impact gun. Usually I don't like doing that, but it didn't really leave me much of a choice. All right, let's go at the top now. All right, you see you got some coolant still coming out there, so I want to spray it off a little brake clean there. Okay, I'm going to take a rag and wipe this off. Got to make sure this surface is clean. You don't want any imperfections in there. You know, it may cause the water pump to leak, and you don't want to be doing this job twice. So I'm gonna keep cleaning on that a little bit, and we'll come back to it. So now I'm going to take the water pump and install it. I got my gasket surface there cleaned off as best I could. So I want to try to keep it clean. I went ahead and put some silicone on here, and if you look, I try to keep the bolt holes uncovered there as best as I could. It came with a gasket that looks like this right here. I always like using the silicone myself whenever I can, for the most part. I just feel like that silicone holds up better than a gasket does, but that's just my opinion. I'm not in a big hurry either, so I'm going to let this thing sit for probably a day after the job is complete. I just got to figure out how to get it in there without getting silicone all over myself. All right, I got it put in there, so now I'm going to put the nut on. Make sure you put your wiring harness in place. This wiring harness, if you remember, kind of goes over top of that stud right there. So you got to kind of bend out of the way with one hand there and get your nuts started there, and then go ahead and put the other bolt in here. Just get it started by hand. This nut goes on the stud that is on the back side here, and then this bolt went in up top right here. I'm turning in my fingers on a 10 millimeter deep well socket. I just kind of, after I get it started with my fingers, I'm holding it on the back side with my left hand and just kind of tighten down a little bit on my right hand. Okay, and now I'm going to see if I can get this one right down here. I want to try to get it started. And after I get them all started, what I want to do is I'm going to turn them in all by hand like this, like I'm doing. And I'm going to get the one from the bottom. But before I do that, I just want to snug these up just a little bit. So I'm just going to take my ratchet out and make sure I got it going the right way here. And I'm going to alternate this a little bit. Don't want to over tighten them. And before I get to torquing them, I just want them to sit, just start kind of closing that gap there. I didn't over silicone it either. I didn't put too much on there. You don't want a whole lot in there because you don't want it to go in the coolant passages and clog stuff up in there. And actually I smeared it on with my finger so that way it would kind of spread out before I even squeeze it on there with these sockets. So I got the one stud just snug, not very much. I'm working on the back side here. It's fighting me a little bit because I have a little bit of, it's hard to get to, okay? I'm just going to snug it down. I'll come back to this one, snug it down a little bit, not much, just a little bit. And now I'm going to go to the bottom, and we're going to go ahead and put the bottom one on, so that way, make sure all the bolts line up. And we're going to go ahead and torque the bottom one from the bottom, and then we'll put it back down and torque these at the top. So I got this bottom bolt in, which goes in right above the crank sensor here, and torque spec for it is 80 inch-pounds. I've already snugged it with my ratchet. Let's see if I can get my my torque wrench in there. Give me just a second. So I had to get my torque wrench in here, and I got like a little, I don't know if you would call that, maybe a 3-inch extension with a shallow 10. And I wish this was a flex head. It would have been a lot easier. But anyways, long story short is I got it in there. I got my hand on the back side of it, and I can feel it. I got it to 80 inch-pounds. So let's do the top ones now. So I went around and I just lightly tightened it with my hands, so that way, or with my quarter drive ratchet by hand, so that way it won't take so many turns with this bulky torque wrench. So I did the bottom ones torque down. I did the top one. I'm going to go to the stud here. Tighten that one. I'm going to go to this stud right here. Tighten that one. I'm going to go down here to this one. Tighten that one, and then up here to this one. Now I'm just going to kind of go through all of them, make sure that they're all nice and snug. And what I want to point out here is you kind of see how I did that. You know, we all know that if you put a tire on a vehicle, you need to, you know, do like a star pattern. Well, that's what I did right here with this water pump bolts. You know, I did the bottom one first, and then I came up here and did like the top one, then I went over here, down there, right there. So anyways, and I went through and just now checked them all, make sure they're all good to go. Don't forget your wiring harness here, and don't forget to clip it back here in the bottom. I forgot to point that out while I was down there. So that way that wiring harness doesn't get caught up with the serpentine belt. Okay, now I believe it's time to put our alternator back in. Now, you may need to make your life a little easier. Let me zoom out on here. You may want to think about taking and like a punch or something and just tapping on this to drive this part that way. Because what this thing's made to do is made to squeeze in there, okay? It sits in there, like that. So we may want to think about just taking a punch and a hammer and just tapping that way a little bit to ease installation. Now, when you go put that bolt back through here, it'll draw that back in and squeeze that against the engine block and make your life a little easier. Or I'm sorry, it'll tighten it back up. So I got the alternator on the bench here, and actually if you look at the alternator, it's kind of crazy. Look right here. I just now noticed that. That right there is that antifreeze been leaking out of that water pump and just throwing it up on there just a little bit. It really wasn't much of a leak to like cause a concern for the customer, but yeah, just seeping out a little bit. So remember, this is just, pop aluminum here. It's easy to break these ears off. So I'm going to take and just be real careful. Maybe try to kind of hold this against my body here as I just get a little. I'm using a brass punch, so that way it won't hopefully damage that. And now that I did that, I probably drove it out just a little bit and made a little bit more of a gap in here, so that way it'll ease installation. So now I got to put the alternator back in. You got to get this right here over top of that section right there. So push your wires out of the way, put this dude down in here, and see if I can hopefully wiggle this thing kind of back into place here. There you go. Something like that. Get the whole car bouncing there. All right, get my big long bolt here, which is a 14 millimeter head. And of course, you want to start it by hand. You do not want to use an impact to start it. I got it started. Now I'm getting my 12 millimeter head. This one's for the bottom. It's a gold colored bolt here. And this one we're going to have to kind of, like I said, it was hard to see. You're going to have to like lift up on the alternator just a little bit with your fingers, like I am here. My right hand, I don't know if you can see that. Let me show you what I was talking about real quick. So my right hand, I was using this bracket right here. And I just picked up on it just a little bit, so that way I can get the bolts to start. Make sure you got both of them started by hand, which I do. Okay, I got my 12 millimeter with a 3/8 air ratchet. Okay, just snug that on there. That's the bottom one. The top one, remember, you need your 14 millimeter socket. So I want to put this guy on there. Okay, and now we are going to attach the bracket back on here. This is a 10 millimeter head. Put that dude right on there like so. And then I'm going to take this nut off the alternator, and I'm going to put this wire back on here from the battery. We're going to just start that by hand. Take this wiring harness connector. It only goes on one way. The tab faces towards the exhaust here. Push that back on there, and then make sure you push your little plastic cover kind of back over there. All right, so now we want to take this wiring here and that's in the loom and put it back in here. Now, if you broke this off of here, I would recommend getting a piece of zip tie or something to put around there. You don't want that electrical wire making its way into the serpentine belt, get caught up in there. That's a bad day. All right, so now I'm going to grab see if I can find my 10 millimeter and my quarter drive ratchet. Okay, so I'm going to take and just snug this guy up real quick. Snug him up. We're going to snug this one up too. I could hook the battery back up now, but I think I'm just going to wait till the end of the job to do that. I'm going to see if I can find some torque specs real quick. Okay, the top bolt here, their 14, is 38 foot-pounds. So, okay. And now the bottom one is going to be 15 foot-pounds. I got my 12 millimeter deep well socket. I got it at 15 foot-pounds. Okay, that one's nice and tight. All right. And I have my 10 millimeter with my torque wrench, and this is set at 7 foot-pounds. There you go. All right. And that wire that holds the generator on there, that's right there. It's 80 inch-pounds. If you want to torque that one down, you can. All right. Now, I think it's time to install the drive belt. So I'm comparing this drive belt to the old one, the new one to the old one. So I just kind of put in my thumb and pointer finger here, then kind of come down the same way. I try to make sure that they're really about the same length, you know. The one they sent us is this one right here. That's the drive belt. This belt that I'm replacing actually doesn't really look too bad. The way you can tell this is one of those EPDM belts. You know, the old school belts used to crack real bad and stuff like that, and those are dead giveaway. I mean, this one's a little bit shiny and stuff. You can see it's been wearing some, but you know, yeah, I mean, I guess right there looks looking kind of bad a little bit. But what I want to show you is we got this little tool that Dayco makes, and I don't know if it's going to be able to show you this or not. But what you do is you put this right here into the belt ribs, and if you can see any air gap, just see just a little bit, then it needs to be replaced. They also give you this little sight window, and they say if you have like so many cracks within that little sight window right there, then you need to replace it. But it's actually not in the worst shape I've ever seen, but we already have the belt off of there, and I'm sure that's probably the original one. So I'm not charging the customer any extra time to put the belt on. I'm just charging them, you know, for the belt. I've already had the belt off there, so I'm not going to charge them any extra time to do that. But before I can put this belt on, one thing I forgot to do is we got to put this pulley back on. So I'm going to clean this up just a little bit, get that gunk out from the inside. We got to put it on that water pump, bolt it back on there, and then go from there. But I'm going to clean up for a little bit, so I'll be back at you in a little bit. So I just dropped this thing down in this place here, and you know, looking back on it, if I were you, I would probably put this on before you put the alternator on. Might make it a little easier on you. Probably a lot easier. Kind of forgot about the water pump pulley, to be honest. So I'm gonna mess around trying to put this thing back on here and line up the bolt holes and start them by hand real quick. So I did clean up that pulley real nice. And what I did was I ended up taking the pulley back off, and I pointed the hole for the water pump at the straight up and down, so like the 12 o'clock position. And then I put the pulley on. I knew where my hole was for the water pump. So now, hopefully, I can get a couple more of these other guys on there. Okay, put those on here. These are 12 millimeter bolts. I will probably not be torquing these down because it's next to impossible getting a torque wrench down in there. Like I said just a minute ago, I wish I wouldn't have put the alternator on there until I got this done. It would have made my life a little bit easier. So now I need to find my 12 millimeter. I'm going to use my ratchet wrench here. Let me zoom out a little bit here. And we need to figure out how to hold this thing so we can tighten it down. I have my strap wrench on here, and I already got just kind of snugging them down right now, and then I want to tighten it up really good. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and hit this one up real quick. Nice and tight. And now I'm going to turn the water pump and go 180 degrees here. So now I'm after this other one because it's right across from the first one. The reason I'm doing this is just like like I said about putting the water pump. You don't want to just tighten the bolt and then work your way around in a circle. You want to make sure that, there you go. You kind of do it crisscross there. That way you can kind of uniformly tighten it on the car. You don't want to, you want to do like in a star pattern, so to speak. So I'm going to go through and tighten all these, and we'll come back to you. So we're going to install the new belt. I'm going to kind of just squeeze it like this and try to feed it down here to the bottom a little bit. And I'm going to put it around the crankshaft here, because this is the bigger pulley. And then I'm going to probably try to put it around the water pump. And it's going to take me a little bit probably. Here, I'll put it around the AC compressor and then the water pump. And let me get this thing kind of routed. It's going to take me a little bit to do this, and I'll come back to you.